Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. It's Tuesday now, the 23rd of August, 2022, and we've got something we need to discuss here, this sneaky little Caribbean system that has popped up. We were looking at it maybe off and on the last couple of days. Now, I guess you could say it's official because it has been, as we say, outlooked on the National Hurricane Center website. They have issued a tropical weather outlook for it. So that'll be the main focus of my update today as we look across the rest of the tropics. Not much going on out there, of course, but this one certainly has our attention. So let's get on with it, shall we? All right, first of all, National Hurricane Center homepage. There it is, not an invest area yet. I suspect it will be soon enough. And when it does so, it'll be 91L, 20% chance of development. It's coming from an area of disturbed weather centered several hundred miles to the east-southeast of the windwards, and while it's currently disorganized, and I'll show you that more on satellite and other tools in just a moment, conditions could become more conducive as this system moves into the eastern Caribbean Sea. So right off the bat, our friends down here in the Windward Islands need to be watching this closely, as it could start to develop and head your way, bringing some squally conditions over the next couple of days. All right, so this is what it looks like on satellite. There it is down there, currently disorganized, but it is looking like, according to the models anyway, they're starting to really pick up on it. The main area of more concentrated activity right there, and I'll show you this on the vorticity signature in just a moment. This could be a player, something we're going to really have to watch. Now, it's really interesting where this came from. It was not a tropical wave that emerged off of Africa and stayed dormant, and now it's well over here, all the way over here, trying to develop. No, it's got a very interesting genesis, and I'm going to show you that here in just a moment. You're not going to believe this. It's like, really? But yes, it is. Upper level low to the south of Bermuda, which is right there, and the north to the north of Puerto Rico. This stalled frontal boundary is certainly an interesting feature. Lots of heavy rain scooting across Mississippi now, and it dumped all that rainfall over in Texas yesterday. But the rest of the region, deep tropics, nice and quiet. Lots of dry mid-level air out here. Not so much the Saharan air layer. I talked about that in my What's Up segment from this morning. It's just this mid-level dry air that keeps getting infiltrated down into this region, drying out these tropical waves. You've got to have a very high relative humidity about midway up in the atmosphere to allow, well, that's the energy, at least part of it anyway. And without that, you kind of have a cap out there of a warm and dry air mass that's not allowing these tropical waves to develop. Like I said, though, this, not a tropical wave. Its origins are a lot different than we are perhaps used to seeing. And that leads me to this tweet here from a couple of days ago from Philippe Papin. Now, Philippe works down at the National Hurricane Center. He's actually a hurricane specialist. I met him at the National Hurricane Conference back in April in Orlando. Very easy to talk to, very friendly, very outgoing, and very, very smart. And he puts together these amazing annotated GIF animations that we have all come to know and love since before he went to work at the Hurricane Center, and now that he is there, we get to see his talents expanded even further. So, what is the cause of this system? Well, as Philippe has mentioned here, a cold surge propagating up South American Amazon. So coming from the south up the Amazon has worked its way so that it's created this convergent zone all across the northern parts of South America, and that can trigger these convectively coupled Kelvin waves and just this area of that word convergence. And that convergence is very, very important right there, and vorticity or spin in the intertropical convergence zone down here. It's just another way to get the atmosphere to squeeze the air together, and that's the convergence part, and then to start it spinning. That's part of the Coriolis effect of the Earth, and boom, there you go. And it's along the intertropical convergence zone, which is a naturally convergent boundary. Again, at the low levels, you have to have the air coming together, and then it starts to rise. You get thunderstorms. That releases heat into the atmosphere. That warming process keeps the engine going if the atmosphere allows, and that is what the computer models are starting to pick up on more and more. They were seeing it even a few days ago. Now it is becoming more and more prevalent. A very interesting source here cold air surging up the Amazon from south to north. Wow, I don't know that I have ever seen that before, but apparently it is a thing, and people look out for it from time to time, as Philippe talked about here in this tweet. And you can see it right here. That is the area of vorticity, or spin in the atmosphere, the air coming together down there. We've got the convergence. We've got the little bit of spin there, the little bit of energy all throughout the intertropical convergence zone here. And you can even see all of this area of convergence all through here, and that extends on over into the Pacific. Now, this is not related to what's happening in South America, but there it is. It's starting to come to fruition. It does appear this is a seedling, an area to watch. It's a genesis point along the area that we would normally watch from the main development region down here and the intertropical convergence zone. I just think it's a very interesting and different source of how to get things started than I've ever seen, and I guess it fits with 2022 quite nicely, because the rest of the deep tropics out here, I mean, there's a little bit of energy right there, but this has just been about as anemic and dry as we've seen it in a long, long time. So this will be our area of interest over the coming days, and we'll start to look at it here on the modeling. This is very important. Let me go back to this just real quick. So that's what it looks like. Sorry, let's draw on it there. That's what it looks like on an analysis. This, by the way, is an analysis product right here. This is not a forecast. This is a satellite product, a satellite-derived product showing the vorticity of this part of the Western Hemisphere. Make that very clear. It's about 5,000 feet up in the atmosphere, about 850 millibars. So this is an analysis. This updated at 15 UTC. Let's see if it updated recently. I'm just going to refresh the page here, and it doesn't look like we have the 18 UTC in just yet. Still 1,500. That's fine. So that's what it looks like. Keep your eyes on that. All right. There it is in the analysis. So then the modeling. There's the model, the forecast, the numeric weather prediction forecast. Show it. Yes, it does. There it is right there. That's what it looks like in the model world. So at least it picks it up. It quote-unquote sees it. And look, there's some of that spin down there. You can follow these wind barbs. Definitely we have some counterclockwise rotation down there picked up in the modeling. This is valid right about now, 18Z. I'm putting this together just a little bit past 18Z or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So what happens? Well, let's just take this out 24 hours from this morning. So this will be Wednesday morning, August 24th, the 30th anniversary of the landfall of Andrew down here. Story for another day. I'm sure you're following that elsewhere. Lots of people tweeting about it. So this August 24th, what will be happening? Well, the GFS anyway starts to show, look, it's even got that S shape already. More amplified, so we'll be able to see. That's what I really like about how we do all of this. We can literally see tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, when this is valid, 12Z, is that what the vorticity signature looks like, and the overall cloud pattern. This isn't showing clouds, but does it verify? And we'll have 24 hours, less than that now, and we can know. Does it match, or did it weaken and the vorticity is not as strong, and the GFS, what we're seeing now, didn't get it right? We're going to be able to know that tomorrow morning. Again, another fascinating part of tracking these systems is we can verify it as it goes along. All right? Sometimes that's bad because the whole watch pot never boils thing, you get sort of obsessed with it. But whatever. There's 24 hours, 36, and then finally 48. It's coming together a little bit more. Definite curvature of the overall wind field down here. You can see that. Light winds, 5, 10, maybe 15, 20 knots. Nothing substantial, but it is starting to come together. And then finally, as we move this out even further into time, 72 hours, it starts to come through parts of the Windward Islands. And I know that we have a lot of people that watch these videos that live down there, that vacation down there, have other interests. Yes, you're going to want to watch this. I mean, look at what it looks like here at the 72-hour mark. Much more, looks like banding going on with it. Overall, these vorticity, almost like little feeder bands, the curvature. The cloud shot would probably be very interesting. And I know that Dr. Cowan has that product, but I don't want to have this thing last an hour today, so we're just going to skip that. there is a simulated infrared cloud shot product on this particular GFS world that Dr. Levi Cowan has created here, but for the sake of brevity, we're going to skip that. I just like to show you this because to me, this is the structure. If that is there at the lowest part of the atmosphere, that the model will see this before you get to sea level, and then you start looking at surface pressures and all that, that'll come. If this looks good, then you start building from the bottom up. That's how I look at things. That's not necessarily, I've said this before, how the National Hurricane Center does it, different forecasters at different weather service offices, other private meteorological companies. I don't know. I don't know what they look at exactly. They probably have a lot more layers and a lot more complexity. I just like to keep it simple. If this part is intact, then you have a foundation for it to build on from about 5,000 feet all the way up to about 200 millibars. And boy, I tell you, when you see these things look like that at 200 millibars, then you have a very intense cyclone. Speaking of 200 millibars, let's just jump over real quick. What does it look like at 200 millibars? Now, it's not ideal at this point in time. Some northerly shear could be impacting it at that point, and you can see that right there. But an area of upper level high pressure is sitting over just north of the Dominican Republic in that region, and then you have some good easterlies coming through here. So once that moves through and sort of escapes that northerly shear, it may start to really come together here after 3 days' time. So let's move this out and see what happens. 84 to 96. There's 4 days out. Definitely starting to come together there. That is only 96 hours out. You got some stronger flags in there, 20, 30 knots, maybe more. A more concentrated area of vorticity. It looks closed off. I mean, if this were to keep happening like this, by this point in time, Recon would be going down there. They base out of St. Croix. They can. And we would be investigating this with a Hurricane Hunter aircraft. This is only 4 days out in time. So either the model is just going to whiff on this badly, which I doubt a little bit more in this case that it's going to happen, that this is a false start, because the Hurricane Center did outlook it, meaning it's kind of officially on the books now as an area of interest. There are other models that are picking up on this. There is some ensemble support, but we do have a seedling there in an area that's coming into a region that is not plagued by the dry air. The mid-level dry air that we've talked about, that's not happening in this region. So at 96 hours, let's look at the 200 millibar level. How do things look? Does this make sense? Oh, look at that. Yes, it does. Now, it looks like the anticyclone is developing almost right on top of it. See, the air is coming out generally in all directions. You don't have a band of like these blues over here cutting right across it. I know I'm using yellow, but that's just to define what I'm talking about. A fairly decent upper level pattern. So it makes sense if all of this happens as forecast, though. That's the trick. So going on out to 5 days, and we're going to stop there for obvious reasons. That is a fairly well developed, maybe a tropical storm at that point. We can look at the upper level winds again. Pretty favorable overall. No shear in the area. There is your TUT right there, your tropical upper tropospheric trough. Not very favorable right through here, but this is south of all of that. The winds down here are much lighter, and you see the surface pressure indicated at 1,004. Could be a tropical storm, a depression. We shall see. Now, I know that everybody and their mother and their uncle and their brother and their friends and their neighbors and their coworkers can go look at pivotal weather, at tropical tidbits, at weather models, at whatever. Even the old INSEP site itself from the NOAA servers, and run this all the way out to 384 hours. That's fine. I mean, I've already seen it. I know where it ends up. But we know also how much that can change. Just the next 5 days, let's just see what happens, all right? Let's see if this does form, and then we can start looking down the road to see what might be lurking in terms of where this ends up, how strong it may or may not be, so forth and so on. And let's not forget that the first people that will be impacted by this are going to be those down here in the Windward Islands. And like I said, I have lots of people that watch from Trinidad, Tobago, Dominica, St. Lucia, and areas all down there. yeah, so we'll get it through there first and then see where it goes from there. But at least for now, National Hurricane Center has outlooked it officially. That's a verb now, outlooked. And we'll see. It has certainly got my attention. What about the rest of the tropics? Well, funny you should ask. We'll run this out to 5 days as well. Stop it right at 120. There is our system in the Caribbean. And by the way, if this gets named and nothing else does, we will finally get to Danielle, the D storm, and we would do so before the end of August if it happens, and we wouldn't have a shutout where there's no named storms and no hurricanes for August. That would be phenomenally unusual to see. Definitely. What else? Well, there's a little impulse here that I think is currently 90L. Not going to do much, probably. And then this one, 5 days out, is what they have outlooked coming off of Africa. That's this feature right here, by the way. And they've got it at 0%. I guess they don't think that anything's... Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong one. Let's go to this. This one, 20%. If we look over here, that's what that 20% looks like in 5 days. Just so you know, not much model support for that. Why? Again, I think there's just too much mid-level dry air out here. It is not dust and Saharan air necessarily. It is just the environment. And we've seen that. I just want to mention this real quick. I was texting back and forth with my friend Dylan at Wink TV. I featured his tweet this morning on the What's Up segment that it seems since the last big El Nino of 2015 that our seasons have kind of started later, and we've had a lot of these instability issues out in the deep tropics where they just take forever. These tropical waves take forever. But once they get to the western basin, they seem to really blow up. We think about Harvey, 2017. Michael was a different genesis point, but I'm just saying, like, maybe the eastern Atlantic is starting to become less favorable for the long period, and these tropical waves are going to go west. The season is shifting a little bit more. These are just my theories. I don't know. It's not been a long enough sample time of 5, 6, 7 years to really know, but there's definitely some kind of a hindrance not related to Saharan air and dust that is keeping these tropical waves from developing, and it's very, very complex. People with far more educational hours than me are looking into it as we speak, I assure you, because a lot of seasonal forecasts were, saying, look, we're going to have a very busy season, and it still could be, make no mistake. We have a long way to go. It's still only August, and we still have 8 days left in the month, if memory serves, right? August 31st. We're not there yet. So anyway, the eastern Atlantic still looks pretty anemic overall, and it might just be that things are going to be delayed a little bit. Then once we get into September, then the tropical waves are more moist. Overall, the environment is more moist, and we do get a couple of long-track hurricanes in the main development region. But I caution you, as we're seeing with this one system in the Caribbean potentially, they don't all come from the main development region. Sometimes, apparently, from a cold surge sneaking its way up the Amazon. Who would have known? I never heard of that, but there it is. All right, couple things to point out. If this does, in fact, get going, the water temperatures all throughout the area that it'll be traversing, warmer than average by a decent margin, just to point that out. And then certainly, from there, if you want to extrapolate it out, yes, the water temperatures are slightly warmer than the long-term average. What about the upper ocean heat content? My friend Steve, DE Steve, Delaware Steve, as we know him, wrote the people at the Hurricane Research Division. We used to have the tropical cyclone heat potential maps, and then they became password protected, and apparently they've done some shifting and stuff down there of their resources. Steve wrote them. Their public affairs person said, here's a link to them, and now we have this new version of it, which I'm getting used to. I think the different outlines here, your gradients, are at least a little easier to see, that once you get into this area, you're talking some really high upper ocean heat content values, and that is exactly where this system would potentially be headed. So we're going to have to watch this very, very closely. Lots of energy down there for this to work with. Climatologically, a favored area, a favored time of year overall. The seedling apparently is there, so we'll start watching it closer, and we'll stay on top of it. All right? All right, that is going to be it from me for today. This is the part where I ask you, especially if you're new, you're just watching this video or my stuff for the first time, it doesn't take long. Subscribe to the channel. That way you get notified, but you have to hit the notification button. There's a little bell. All the gamers and other YouTubers talk about it. I hear my kids on their videos that they watch, and those guys and gals are just all about it. Like, subscribe, share the whole bit. We do want to grow this YouTube audience, and the feedback, you guys, the comments you make are like 99.9% positive and helpful. How often do you get to see that? I guess I'm doing something right, and I attract a very positive and smart crowd. But we want to keep that going, so like, share, subscribe, if you would, please. All right, so we shall see. Sneaky development coming in. We've been watching it. It's not like we didn't know about it, but I talked about it this morning, but now it's starting to become more real because it is on the tropical weather outlook. So we'll see what happens as we go forward. Oh, I activated my air tag. That's funny. I banged the desk and the air tag started talking. Funny way to end the update. All right, that's it from me. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another What's Up in the Tropics. That's it. I'm Mark Sett with HurricaneTrack. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.